What is up, my fellow parents? Hey, I'm here in my new house with one of my favorite people in the world, Jordan. We're here to inspire you, educate you, and I just moved this week, so it's a crazy week, and we're not taking any weeks off the podcast, so I'm here. And in the middle of all this stress of the move, I asked Jordan, say, hey, Jordan, can you just take the lead of this next episode? You pick the content. You tell us what you want to talk about. Do some background research, and can you just do it? And that's why I asked him. Jordan was like, sure, man. I got this. No problem. And then Jordan texted me. He said, okay, I picked the topic. It's up in the notes. And then I looked at the notes, and Jordan, what's up, man? Come on.
What was your reaction, first off? Were you like, what in the world is Jordan thinking?
Yes. I was like, can you pick an easier topic? Like, why? I just moved. Like, this is so heavy and intense and
I didn't mean for it to be heavy.
And like hard.
More importantly, I was just obviously being selfish, and I wanted to have Sean answer a few questions that I had. But,
cool.
You know, I got a lot going on in my life, and I got a couple of 10-year-olds. I got a 5-year-old who's got special needs. And I was like, man, I'm on the border of like my kid's going through puberty. So I'm like, that's on my mind right now. So I was like, okay, let's ask Sean some questions about that. That might be cool from like his perspective. What are some of the things that he's seen in his practice and with different clients when it comes to puberty at different ages? We know that, especially women, girls, they're starting puberty younger and younger.
They really are.
It's I don't know if it's sad or concerning. It's reality, Right. And so I'm like, man, okay. And then my mind went on like, okay, well, if I talk about puberty, I got to start talking about sex. So then I'm like, okay, well, let's start going down that path. And then I started putting notes in about sex and different, questions I had that revolved around that, like masturbation, and then it just like I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy because this is an awkward topic that no one wants to talk about.
But that's why we should talk about it. That's why it was brilliant that you said today we're gonna be talking about puberty, sex, masturbation, how to talk to our kids, tweens, our teenagers about these tough topics, and that's why I'm glad you picked it. I'm ready.
I'm ready. And then I've got more Ask Sean questions down the road, that I'm looking forward to as well. Like if you have, someone who's recently got cancer, how do you explain that to your kids? Or, just there's a lot of tough questions, drugs and alcohol, but let's focus on this for now.
Jordan, you actually made a list of Ask Sean questions. And so I said, Jordan, this is all heavy duty stuff. Let's take off a chunk here to the puberty, the masturbation, the sex stuff. Let's start with that, and then we'll do other Ask John episodes. So, everybody,
get ready, buckle in. I think for some reason it's obviously extremely awkward for anybody to talk about that. I want to ask why it's awkward, but my thoughts before you answer that is like we go from like, hey, Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus and presents and birthdays and everything's so fun and great. And then it's like, bam, we're slapped in the face with like a hardcore reality.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. And, and then what happens is, you're in that tween stage and you have teenagers and you think you're prepared for what you're about to hear or what you're about to see, and boom. It hits you again. This is parenting in 2024. And I think it's probably always been this way, but it's just like, I feel like saying right now, if you know, you know. Like, do you know what I mean by that? Do you know what I mean? If you know, you know.
But it's almost like you can't wait, right? Like when it's probably too late. Like you always say, when we're trying to teach, you can't teach in the moment. You have to like do a lot of stuff in advance. And so this comes down to that. Yeah. But why is it so hard for us parents to like have these conversations?
Okay, so here's what I've learned. And I'd like to get your advice and your impact too, because what we're talking about today is we are going to share some empirical facts today. But when you're talking about these topics, so much of it is gray, so much it is family values, so much it is so different. I mean, like you could be the world's leading expert in how to teach your kid to live in a healthy way in this area, whether it be sexuality, it could be oral hygiene, it could be anything. And that doesn't mean your kid is going to make these choices. So this is just such a hard topic. Furthermore, I think a big we do know that there are many parents nowadays that are very comfortable, Jordan. I mean, 10 out of 10 comfortable talking to their kids about sex, penises, vaginas, masturbation, sexting, oral sex, anal sex. Like they're 10 out of 10. Now that's not me, but I think we could all get to there if we really wanted to. It just takes time. It takes practice. It's like take anything. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure that there's a lot out there. I just think generally when you think about it, a lot of people get squeamish, like, oh, gotta have the tough talk, gotta talk the birds and the bees, gotta, and it's like a chore, right? But like you've said previously, it's like if we're not having those conversations, right, someone else is, and they're learning from somewhere else.
Oh,
and
gosh,
most of the time, it's probably the
good.
internet, which isn't the best place to learn about it.
Well said. I mean, you got to just simmer and think about what Jordan just said. So if you're on the fence about talking to your kids at all, can you just say that again? Because it was very well said. You mean you gave me credit for it, but I didn't. You just said it. So,
yeah. I mean,
no,
if we are not having those conversations with our kids and not teaching them, they're going to learn it from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And the likelihood to either friends at school. Mm-hmm. I remember some of the stuff my quote unquote friends at school taught me when I was back in middle school. I was like, really? That's not okay. Or the internet.
There is. And so this episode's going to be interesting because we're going to keep vacillating between, we're going to giggle and we're going to laugh about stuff. And we're going to talk about something super serious. Like right now, I don't know if you're going to giggle about what I'm about to say, if you're going to ever think it's serious. How I learned about sex was not from my parents. We never had once birds and the bees talks, or bees and bees, or birds and birds, or birds who used to be bees and now they want to be birds, or bees who are kind of into birds. And then there can be, this is like the time of 2024. Where I learned about all this stuff was I used to watch the Playboy channel, but through the squiggly lines.
Oh yeah, man, those are the good old days.
You know what I'm talking? If you know, you know.
Oh my gosh, I think I saw something.
Right, where they had the Playboy channel on TV growing up, and sometimes you could actually hear them having sex, and if you watch closely, you could actually see some body parts. That was how I learned about sexuality. Did you have the squiggly lines at all, or how did you learn about sex?
I remember watching those, but it wasn't like that was my go-to. I think I was at like a friend's house, and he had it on or something silly. I never did that. And I actually had, especially my mom, she would come to me, I remember at a younger age, and kind of started the conversations with me. And I had a couple of questions then. And then I remember sex ed in sixth grade and learning from this old man teacher that just was really awkward, but it was probably awkward for him to teach it, but maybe not. Maybe he was like, no, this is no big deal. And then they had this like secret box that you could ask questions, like write down your question, put it in the box without your name. And so that they would ask the questions in front of the class. So you didn't have to raise your hand and feel awkward.
What grade did you say that was?
That was sixth grade.
Yeah, which I believe in every state is different, but I believe in most states, I know it here is in California, sex ed starts in the 5th grade. I don't know where it is in Georgia.
I don't either, actually.
But I think that there's so many reasons why. I think why it's hard to talk to our kids. I think the first has got to be culturally, like our own cultural heritage, even our family culture. So for me, and I hope this helps everyone feel better, I'm like the family coach. I spent almost 25 years of my life dedicated to you and being in this space. And it's still hard for me to talk to my kids about these things. Yeah. And I have 3 daughters and I'm a man. And so if I had a son, I think I'd be much more comfortable. So for example, like I've talked to, countless men, young men, teenage and tweens about pornography, about sex, sexual addiction, about acting out, and I'm very comfortable talking to these people who aren't my own children, but it would be really hard for me to talk to my daughters about some of these topics. And this is why does that make me a bad parent that I would feel more comfortable talking to my
I think that's most of us. That's
son?
why I wanted to ask you about it, because it's like, it is hard, but you got to do it still. Yeah.
So in my, I don't, this is like, I'm going to say this, and I'm like the family coach saying this. I don't know if I've even said this out loud before. I don't know if it's good parenting or bad parenting that in our family, my wife has taken the lead of talking to our daughters about these things. Now, have I talked to them about these things? Well, yeah, I have, but she's kind of taken the lead because she's a female and I have 3 daughters. Is that bad parenting, do you think? Do you think I should take the lead, or is this just culturally
I think the bigger question is, would they even take you seriously, right? It's like kids in that age, they want their questions answered from experience. And maybe they would have, and maybe you're a single dad and all you have is girls and you have to do that. Maybe you're a single mom, all you have is boys and you have to do that.
You do. I've got a client. I'm going to mention this client a couple times. She's a single mom. She has an 11-year-old son, and her son came up to her, Jordan, and she said, "Can I please watch pornography?" And she's in my membership, so she contacted me and she says, "Hey, I don't know how to respond to this. Can you give me some tips and some ideas?" And so she wasn't ready for the boy to watch pornography. I gave her my opinion, which was absolutely no. I think pornography is a distortion of reality. I think it's a drug. I do not think it's healthy. I think if an 11-year-old said, "I'm curious about trying heroin, can I please try it?" And it's rather than I do not think that 11-year-olds should try heroin either. But so this is we're all just trying to figure this out, man, aren't we? We're all just trying to figure this out.
Yeah, it's just hard because if your kid is asking you, it's like, wow, that's really cool that you asked me, but I'm going to be a stickler. But the reality is you're not going to stop that kid from watching it. It's so easy to access everywhere. OnlyFans and all these websites. What did there's like some stat where it's like 90% of the websites out there or something is like porn related, which is sad.
So sad.
And so they're going to get that. So you're right. No, you don't. Right. And it is a distortion of reality and it does cause problems. There's even been some celebrities that have come out and says pornography has ruined my life.
Numerous.
I'm asking people, to
Billie
not watch
Eilish
it.
is one of the latest ones. A pop star,
Correct.
super sensation. Billie Eilish is now talking about how she was addicted to pornography. Terry Crews is very outspoken. He's a very famous actor, and he's the host of, I think, America's Got Talent or something like that. Terry Crews.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know Terry Crews was...
Yeah, he almost lost his marriage.
Addicted? I did not know that.
He's outspoken. But yeah, so did your parents talk to you about the birds and bees or masturbation?
Just my mom.
Sex?
I don't remember it much from my dad, but I do remember like 2 times having conversation with my mom, and it was good. It was not in depth. It was just like, hey, if you have any questions about body parts or about anything that has to do with sexuality, please feel free to ask me. Yeah. And it was like very open. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. It's still funny. I still have this memory of like me getting puberty for the first time, right? And it's like, wow, there's hair growing in places and it's so different, right? Yeah. And then of course, unfortunately, kids are going through that during like middle school, and some kids get it sooner rather than others, and it's such an awkward time for kids, and it's really hard.
Well, let's get some tools for that, because the stats show us that puberty happens around ages 9 through 12. I was 12, which means like right around the end of 5th grade, 6th grade when I hit puberty. Probably around 11, 12. And so, yes, we are seeing some stats.
Yeah, I guess me too.
Some girls,
that was about the same time, yeah.
Yeah, about the same time, are now starting puberty earlier. It's also...
I have family who started at 10. I think my wife started at 10.
Yeah, so 9 through 12 range.
9 is just so young.
So young, isn't it?
Yeah.
So young, but this is all normal. So let's talk to our kids about... it seems like that was on your list. Let's talk about how to talk to our kids about puberty, because what the experts have telling us, and while I am a parenting expert, I don't specialize in sex education. So I did some research to get ready to make sure that I was giving you good advice and sharing good information, because it does really kind of make sense. Just like you want to talk to your teenagers early about teen issues before they hit their first high school party, doesn't it make sense that we would start talking to our preteens or prepubescent kids about, hey, your body's going to start changing here, and this is what's going to happen, and you're going to get your period, or you're going to start growing hair here, you're going to have hormonal changes, and I want you to talk about this with me. So I also wrote, and if you are taking notes at home, I wrote down 4 foundational points, 4 foundations about how to thrive in these sensitive topics of puberty, masturbation, early sex education. So I'll share the first one right now. Okay.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, please.
It sounds like when you talk about your mom, Velvet, that she had a couple talks with you and they went well. And the reason why is because your mom was your person. You felt safe with her. You felt like I could talk to her about anything. I could tell her anything. Does that sound like you and your mom when you were a kid?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, one of the big things, she's like, just don't lie to me. You will get in less trouble if you just tell me the truth, right?
Yeah.
I just want to be open with you. And my dad was like that too, Hey, I'd rather, let's say he was drinking. Hey, I'd rather come pick you up at a party if you were drinking underage than you sneak it from me and not come home, right? So just keeping the lines open.
So you probably had the benefit of having, when I say your person, maybe more than one person. I mean, ideally that's the goal, right? That your child would feel like, their one parent is their person and their other parent is their person. And so when you think about the person, like, you think about, like, you're the one person in the whole world that your kid is going to come to talk about these things. You're the one person in the whole world out of billions of people on the planet that they're going to meet, that they can feel safe, that they have that emotional safety to. How do we parent our kids? How do we talk to our kids? That's our goal, so that we can talk to them about these topics and they will listen. And then when they have questions, when they have concerns, when they have shame, when they have fears, they will come to us. Does not make sense that our number one foundation is to parent in a way to be our child's person? Yes.
But I think the reality is, even if we want to be that person, sometimes we're not, or they're not comfortable with asking us something. So that's the hard truth, and that's fine. And maybe they don't feel that way. But what you're saying is we can just at least keep opening, or keep the gates open so they can come home whenever they want to chat.
That's our goal. It takes two to tango, but isn't that our goal, to be their person? Here's two stories that come to mind. I was talking with a man inside my membership yesterday, and he shared how his mother was very strict with him growing up, very strict Catholic upbringing, and there were certain words he wasn't allowed to say as a kid, like the word hate.
Okay.
And so recently,
it's a strong word.
He was visiting with. His mother was visiting him, and now he's a grown man, right? Probably in his 40s. And he's got kids of his own. And while he's casually talking and driving a car, he says the word hate. And this is a very normal, healthy, successful man. And
like, gosh, I hate this traffic, or just something
just
silly. Right.
Saying, and take a wild guess. What do you think his mom did?
I don't know. He's an older man now, right?
Well, you would expect the mom to do what? Like, what do you think would be the cool thing to say? She clearly doesn't like the word, but this is a grown man. She hit him. She slapped her own son, and she reprimanded her son.
What?
Because that's how she rolls.
That's how she rolls.
Right. Now, I'm not saying this is bad parenting or grandparenting. I don't think he likes this. I think he's just so used to it. It probably doesn't bother him, right?
Right.
Because he loves his mama. But, like, let me make up a story in my head that if you're parenting your kids and they say a word you don't like hate, and you slap them, or you say, we don't say those words, you can't talk that way, and if you come off in this aggressive style, then what you might be doing is you're not creating an emotional safe place in your own house.
Right.
So if your kid can't come to you and talk to you about things that they hate, which is a strong feeling, but we all feel it. Everybody does hate traffic. I freaking hate olives. I hate them. I cannot stand olives. They taste disgust me. Then if you think,
what about if you drink a martini? Not even a green olive in your martini?
I don't drink martinis, no.
I'm not James Bond.
But I'm just saying, like, I'm just making a mountain out of a molehill right now.
I know you.
Like, if you don't create that safe space with your children, if they can't come and talk with you about the small things, then they won't come talk with you about the big things.
So, I was recently with some family friends, and their kids are older than ours by, 5 years or something. So I get to see the stages that they go through before I get to go through them. So it's kind of fun to see, okay, this is what's going to happen at this age, and this is how they're parenting it, and they're turning out pretty well. Well, we're getting to the time where, we're becoming Uber drivers for our kids, right? Or Lyft drivers, all right? I'm not biased to one or the other, but we're just taxi cab drivers and taking our kids to and from wherever we go.
Yeah.
And so we're getting to the time where we have fewer and fewer hours of the day with our children because they're busy, they have friends, and they've got activities.
Right.
And so it gets harder and harder to have these conversations. Now, I don't think you're saying have these conversations at the dinner table if you happen to have the time at the dinner table to chat. That's for other things. But what they were saying is take your drive time to make it your conversation time. No tech, no radio, quiet, drive, be still, and then allow conversations to arise, because that's when you're going to connect with your kids while you're driving them to and from places. Would you say that that's pretty good advice?
I think that's brilliant advice, and that's how we've parented our kids here. Like our kids didn't get devices until they're much older, and then when they did get a device, so like my 14-year-old currently has a flip phone, and my 19-year-old has a phone, right? That she got when she was, I think, 16. And we said very clearly on, these are the perimeters. This is all about trust and openness. You've got to earn our trust. You've got to keep it. And one of the ways it means like when I'm driving you around, I want to feel like I'm a chauffeur. Like you're a lot, I want you to be engaged, talking with me, be engaged.
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm not allowed to be on my phone, Dad? Because that's the child brain. They go to the black and white. And this is not a black and white, the way I parented. No, it's about a gray. It means, yeah, you can text your friends, but I don't want you to be having headphones on when I'm driving you to practice or school.
Right.
That's not working for me. That's just this ways these kids are becoming emotionally detached from their parents, and then that's going to cause major problems. The emotional detachment. On the surface, people are whining about screens, which I'm one of those people. But we got to look deeper. What's really going on is that they are bonding with some type of dopamine expression or bonding, and then becoming an unbalanced life where they're spending so much time on a screen and they're detached from the family unit, which is going to cause problems.
Right. So ultimately what we're trying to do is, Sean's first big tip is to like be their safe person to go to. And then I'm trying to figure out, when am I supposed to have these conversations? And, it's going to be different for everybody, but we got to have them. And going back to the puberty for a second, there's obviously different stages of when we have these, awkward conversations. But, we've had to talk about body parts at a really young age, right? I mean, we had twins, so they were bathing together, right? And then there's a certain point where like, well, are they too old yet? Like, what age should they stop showering with? What age should my daughter stop showering with me, right? So it's like, that was kind of a big thing, because I was like, I want my daddy-daughter time, but it gets to a point where it's like, does it get a little awkward? And we want to make sure that we're like, you know what I mean? Like, just doing the right thing.
Doing the right thing.
Talking about what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. Inappropriate touching, we did that at a young age. And then, of course, getting to the point where we talk about, like, say, periods. I'm assuming your wife, when she did that with your daughters, it was happening at that 8, 9, 10-year-old range, so that when they actually had it happen, they were prepared.
Yeah, so here's a couple stories come to mind. I had a college friend who was, if you look up like Surfer Bro in the encyclopedia, which doesn't exist, you'll see this guy's picture. The long blonde hair, the accent, like, yeah, man, yeah, bro. And then one day we were hanging out together in college, and he tells me about how his family regularly walks around the house naked. All of them.
Rarely.
No, regularly.
Oh, okay.
Naked. And I'm freaking out. I'm calling him names. I'm teasing him. This is so weird. But this is the family culture. And this is I don't know how he's doing now. He just seemed like a very normal dude, normal man. Because what's happened is that partly why it's very positive, do's and don'ts to label body parts. Like, yes, that's a penis. To not come up, you don't need to come up with a nickname for it, to call him a pee-pee or privates. You can say that's a vagina, that's a penis. Because you're just normalizing that this is normal. There's no shame in talking about it. And by being upfront, not giggly, just very direct about it, you're teaching your kids how to talk about it, how to normalize it. And then what's happened is, if you start saying it, let's say you go down a path, at age 6, you decide to change your tone, and you now talk about privates like in a very negative way. Like, we don't talk about privates. We don't know. Oh, don't say that. Oh, you don't touch that. Don't touch yourself there. We don't touch. We don't touch. See, what you're doing there is now you're creating a culture where you're now like, oh, okay, I don't touch. Instead,
the forbidden fruit.
Forbidden fruit. Versus on the other extreme, you have this family of my roommate or my friend from college. And so I wouldn't do that. That's not how we roll. I don't want to walk around the house naked here. Because I'm just trying to tell these stories of these extremes. what is normal is that it's very normal for kids, like let's say 6 through 8, to make poop jokes, to talk about penises, to talk about butts, to talk about farts. And they're just exploring what they are, and they're testing their boundaries. Like, what do I, what is okay here? What is not okay? So as we made this podcast for you, we want to kind of give you some tips of what the experts say. And one of the experts, a lot of the big themes that you hear is to just talk about body parts and just call them the way they are. Okay. Number 2, big thing I see when it comes to some of these topics of, puberty is to absolutely talk about how, like, you should never touch anybody else's private parts. These are just for you.
Inappropriate. It's inappropriate touching.
Number 3, you can work with the child you have to see where they're at and what they want to talk about. Because some children may not be ready to talk about some of these things quite yet.
Okay.
And so you've got to kind of be wise to see, like, how do I talk to my kids? How to answer their questions without maybe, like, going too far. Be like, you need to talk. You're 7 now. We need to sit down. You need to know everything. Right. I'll pause and let you process. How am I doing with these tips? Does these sound
great?
Healthy?
And I have a story.
Okay.
That recently happened to me where my wife was going through really bad cramping, right? She was going through that time of the month, and she was just in pain. And, my son had a lot of questions, like, why? What's happening? Why is she, in pain? And so then I was like, okay, I got to go through the process of explaining what is happening and how women produce eggs. And every month, these eggs cycle through, and then there's a bleeding process, right? And so it was totally like, 101 of how a woman's body parts work. And, I was like, well, what's the egg for? Well, the egg is, to help fertilize a baby, right? And so it's like, the baby, well, how does the baby get in the egg? And I'm like, that was the next question. I'm like,
birds and bees.
All right, so do I go to that next step right now and talk about how the egg gets fertile?
I'm on the edge of my seat right now.
I was just like, oh my gosh, this is weird. Should I do it? I don't know. Is it too early? And I said, all right, well, I'll answer that in a second, but let me continue the egg talk. And then I was like, okay, and then the egg, and then it goes out, and then you bleed out, and then of course the next month the cycle starts all over again, and it happens all throughout the year, right?
More about like that ovulation than like probably 90% of men out there. So great description. Great. I don't think I can articulate as well as you just did. Please continue.
Well, the sad thing now is, I don't know if it's sad or not, but you got all these pills that women could take which like turn it off, which I guess is good and bad, right? Because then you don't have to go through that process. But then the problem that we're seeing now, we can go down that road later, is like, it's harder to get pregnant, and it's harder to come off it. You have to, and it takes
hormone
a long time.
Disruptions,
Right, and then you got hormone problems. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But, we got through that conversation, and then I was like, okay, he didn't ask the question again. I can go to bed. So then the next day I had to come back. I'm like, hey, I want to come back to this conversation. Do you have any more questions about what we talked about yesterday? And he said, no, I'm good. So I know that next step is coming, but I just haven't gotten there yet. Your advice a while ago was like, yeah, you should just tell them how it works, but use adult language.
Here's well said, great story. Here's a couple things that the experts want us to know is that one of the keys to this is asking your child, what do you know about this? Like, what do you know? And your child then might tell you what they know, and then you can then correct any type of misunderstanding that they have. Next point would be, tell them, yes, ask, do you want to talk about this? Ask me. And they may say, no, I'm not ready. And they may say, yes, I do want to know. So like I have another client, and this is an example of how tough parenting can be. This boy was recently told his parent, hey, mom, dad, I want you to know something, that this is a 11-year-old boy, that when my friend and I were in a room together, we were both touching ourselves at the same time.
The kid told the parents this.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then we started touching each other. At 11-year-old child, same gender. And so this was very challenging for the parents to hear. And they came to me and said, "Can you give us some tips?" And I said, "Well, that's a very challenging topic right there."
Yeah.
So if you're taking notes at home under this big category of, I'm their person, how do we be our kid's person when we don't know what we're going to be hit with? We don't know how we're going to talk.
It's a great question.
Right?
We don't have the answers.
Now is wondering, okay, should I have taught this child earlier than 11 about these things? Did I make a mistake? Was I doing bad parenting? But the child's 11, talking about touching your friend of the same gender, right?
Yeah.
Same sex.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just parenting. So when this happens to you, just realize you're not alone. This is parenting. It doesn't mean your kid is this or you're that. They're going down a downhill.
Right.
Here's one of the things you want to remember. You can't have an episode about puberty, sex, masturbation without talking about shame and how sensitive people can be to shame and how it's very important to talk about these topics in a loving, non-shameful way.
So it goes back to what you've taught previously of like, we got to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves as parents. Like we will have our own emotions to that topic and we could overreact very easily. But we got to keep our cool.
Overreact by what we're about to see. You might walk in and your kid looking at pornography or watching a YouTube channel or touching themselves or, and we've got to find that balance. So much of this stuff is normal. Like it's normal. Like I had one of my sisters, I remember we used to play a game where she would sit on the toilet and she would pee. And then I would pee standing on the toilet through her
in
legs.
Between her legs.
Yeah,
oh
and I would try to not pee on her. And we would just laugh and giggle.
That is hilarious.
Now, does that mean we were inappropriate? No. Like, we were just little kids having fun with our private parts. And it was not sexual. It was just kids. I don't even know what age we are.
Got great.
So what do you do in these situations, whether it be you catch your child touching themselves, looking at pornography, same-sex issues? It's so hard. Here's something I've learned is that this is going to be hard. This is going to be hard advice for some of you to take. I've been there, done that with a lot of these topics, you guys, because I'm not like, my kids are older now. It's very helpful to actually normalize a lot of this stuff. Can we talk about how to wisely normalize without approving for a second?
Okay. Yeah, that's important.
Did you like how I threw the approving part in there?
That's it. That's very important.
So what we have now, we've got a 2024 culture of people who are normalizing these things, which can be very good. But what they're doing is they're normalizing and approving.
Right.
And there's a difference between normalizing and approving. Normalizing, affirming, normalizing. Right? So it could be normal for a child to be looking at pornography. But do we want to approve the child looking at pornography? No. It can be normal for a child to sneak alcohol. Do we want to approve that child? No. Do you agree with me? Are you with me on this?
Yeah.
Where I'm going with this?
Yeah. And I only think it's normal for people to watch pornography with today's age. I mean, I know historically speaking, there was always some kind of pornography out there, even in the Egyptian days,
said.
right? Of like,
well said, yeah.
But it didn't happen this early in life or this easy in life, I should say. It's just so easy to tap
accessible. So accessible. I mean, you think about even so much of the ancient culture, like I know not every culture dressed with a lot of modesty, but there's many cultures throughout the world. The people were covered in like sackcloth. They weren't walking around in bikinis, like maybe the Egyptian culture was. But
I saw her ankles. I got so excited. Right. I know what you're saying.
So here's here's what I think good parenting is how do you be their person? Because I got 4 points for you, and we're on number 1 still. By having a very open dialogue about these things in a very loving way, in a very non-shaming way, and letting your children know that it is normal to have these urges. It is normal to want to look at pornography. You're not a sicko if you're 10 years old and you ask your mom, can I look at pornography? You're not a pervert if you're 11-year-old and you are interested in touching yourself. These are normal things that are happening to our children as they explore their bodies and they explore their value system. Now, it can be scary, and I'm going to normalize things because then you are afraid that you might be approving it. You with me on that?
Yeah. I am.
And this is where you need to decide then, what are you going to normalize and approve, and what are you going to normalize but not approve?
And how do we not approve it?
Okay, so let me give you something I've learned. I've shared this a couple times on this podcast before. Here's what I've learned. Are you ready for this? Tell me, and I want you to poke holes in this. Here's a simple way of understanding and how to thrive at parenting. As parents, we really want 2 big things from our kids. One is we want them to follow our rules. Follow our rules. Like if you ask most parents, what are your rules? Most parents have about the same 20 rules. Like, what are some of the rules you have in your house?
Eat healthy food, exercise, go to bed on time, brush your teeth, be nice, be loving, be kind, be active, take out the trash when I ask you to, clean up if mom asks you to, help out.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so good. This is a good example because let me
don't curse. Don't.
Yeah. Let me poke holes and let me argue with you for a second, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you ask most parents, what are your rules? Most people are going to say kind of what you just said, right? But here's the problem with what you just said. And it is a problem. And I hope you like that I'm poking on you right now, okay?
Go for it.
You actually didn't read off rules right there. You think you did, but you didn't.
Oh, I was reading off actions?
What you did is you mixed rules with values.
Oh, okay.
So here's a simple way to try to thrive.
Okay, I think
topics.
I want values more than rules.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
I'm okay with rule breaking.
Yes, me too.
As long as the values are there.
Well said. But here's the rules. The rules are things like similar to how they have school rules: no hitting, no cussing, brush your teeth, don't
go to bed on
yell
time.
at me, go to bed on time, eat your foods,
clean up
after yourself, get ready for school on time, listen to mom and dad, do what I tell you to do.
Yeah.
Right? These are the rules. Like if you have teenagers, their rules would be lights out of this time, screens out of this time. These grades are not allowed. These grades are allowed. Rules. Black and white rules. And then what we have is family values. And if there's 20 rules in our houses, there's probably 20,000 values. For example, a value is how someone feels about their life and this sensitive topic. A value would be how I feel about politics, how I feel about sex, how I feel about sexting, how I feel about olives, how I feel about religion, how I feel about grandma and grandpa, how I feel about swearing. Swearing is a good example. Some of you have a value and you don't believe in swearing. And you don't want your kids, but your kids don't have that value.
Or the opposite. You don't want your kids to swear, but you swear around them all the time.
So that's your value.
That too.
The value is I'm allowed to swear, but my family value is my kids are not allowed to swear. Or you have a value of I really want my kids to go into this religion, but your teenager doesn't have the same value. They have a different religion. See, their values, they're gray. They're always shifting. You might be teaching your kids, do not laugh at racist memes on the internet. But your kids are laughing at racist memes because they're different than you and they have a different value. How did I do explaining values? Tattoos, religion, red dye number 40, following rules when you go to the beach, TPing, flushing the toilet, putting the
peeing
toilet
in between
seat
your
down.
sister's legs.
So what I found is that foundation number 2, when you think about these hot button topics, and when you think about so much in parenting, take a line in your mind and just separate that there's family rules and there's family values. And for you to pass your values onto your kids is going to be hard. And it's the most important thing in the world. It's the most important thing. Passing good values to your kids. Like,
why is it that some kids adopt the family values and some kids don't?
I'll tell you my opinion on that, but can you go first? Why is it that you might have 5 kids in the family and 3 of them have the same values of the parents, and the other 2 just went totally the different way?
I think it has to do with family history, how much your family shares in values, let's say its culture, and passes that down. You can see it with, folks with the Chinese descent and what their thought processes are on family, and in India and in Mexico, and family, and it just family is everything. And then in America, it seems like it's, we're all such a hodgepodge mixture. There's not as much of that cultural dynamic and history there. So some people might astray. And I also think outside of that, it's world influence. So you could have that, and if your kid goes into the world and starts to see other things, they might adopt those other things or believe in those other things more. Because of a world influence.
Gosh, I mean, we could do a whole hours on this topic. Why is it that some kids follow the values of the parents and some kids don't?
You ever seen that movie Coco on Disney?
A cartoon? Yeah.
Cartoon.
Definitely.
It's like all about Dia de los Muertos, and that they bring their gifts to their loved ones, and there's a family tree, and if they don't bring the gifts to the loved ones can't cross over from the other side to visit and collect the gifts. It's a kid's movie. But it was really good because it was about this boy who wanted to learn to play guitar, and the family's like, no, you're not going to learn how to play guitar. That's not what we do in this family, because either the mom or the grandma got hurt by the father who was a guitar, and they were just like, no. So the kid wanted to separate from his family. Well, the kid ended up dying, going to the land of the dead and learning about his family history. And it came back to where he appreciated his family more after he learned all that. And then he was, so I think that's where you're getting at. It's like these rules the kids won't necessarily follow because you're just like saying a rule and not explaining why. And if there's some kind of history or family value there, then maybe they're more willing to adopt that rule.
Here's 2 big things to think about, because this is this has got to be one of the most important topics of all when it comes to family life. How do we raise kids with good values, morals, integrity, right? This is what it's about. Here's 2 interesting stories. One is that I found, and the research will support this, that the closer you are with your kids, the more impact you will have on them. The closer and the more connected you are, the more they'll care about you and the things you care about.
Yes, you could see that, correct.
Just like this is one of my favorite examples of this topic. If somebody were knocking on my front door right now and asked me to convert to their religion, I'm like, no, dude.
I don't know you.
You're not even invited in.
Right. Yeah.
But if you were to call me up, or someone I really love or cherish, or someone that I have a lot of trust in, and says, hey, I really got something in my mind, and I really want you to open your mind and check it out. Even if it was a religion, I would at least have an open mind to hear you out, because I love you. I trust you. Right?
Yes.
And I trust you so much to know that you would, you wouldn't ask me to do something that you didn't really believe in, or you cared about, or that you thought was good for me, right?
Right.
So that is a beautiful truth right there. If you have good morals and good values you want to teach your kids, well, then just be their person and be the cool teacher that the kids love.
Yeah.
Isn't that I love that saying. Be the cool teacher that the kids love.
I love that. And that's what we all want. It's just hard, day-to-day life, and it's so important. That view you have, that vision right there. Be the person that your kids love, and you could see that picture in your mind, right now, like smiling and hugging and being close. And then you open your eyes, you walk upstairs, and you go in the living room, and you're like, what in the world is going on over here? Why is this over here? What are you doing? Get off the table, you know?
Oh my
And then
gosh,
we go
so
into
good.
reality, and it's like
so good.
that vision is what we all want, and we need to try and create that as much as we can.
Here's a really interesting story. I'm really excited to get your take on this story, okay? Okay, think about rules and values. And here's a story that we've talked about a couple times on this podcast. One of my friends, she got pregnant when she was 16. And it didn't work out with the baby daddy. And so she was a single mom. And then she got remarried and had another kid together. And then she became an advocate for teaching teenagers about safe sex and about sexual patience. It makes sense, right? Because she was so affected by a teen pregnancy and had a painful choice, fueled her good work. Almost like this is partly why I do this podcast. My painful experiences in my childhood, in my young life, fuels me to do something good, like make parenting videos, right?
Okay.
So here's the kicker. So now this woman has a pretty large platform, and she's doing a lot of teaching to teenagers about safe sex and sexual patience. And she's telling her personal story at these school assemblies and in these freshman health classes and to like in 5th grade sex eds. So good for her, right? Doing good work. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
And she's got a happy marriage. She's got 2 sweet kids. And of course, she's teaching her kids her story and teaching her kids about this value of sexual patience and making sure if you have sex, you're always protected. That's what good moms do, and that's what she did. Good for her, right?
Okay.
Well,
Yes.
then one day, her daughter got a boyfriend who was more sexually experienced, we could say. So she starts teaching a little bit more to her teen daughter. Hey, be careful. Yeah. Be careful. And her daughter's saying, I got this, Mom. You can trust me. I'm good. Right? I'm with you, Mom. I have the same values as you do. And then she got some rough news that the teen daughter was pregnant.
Oh, my gosh. Right. What a case of I told you so. Oh, my gosh.
Dude, what you say things that just make me laugh so much. You make me laugh.
So you told me you got this, and I told you to slow down. You're like, I got this, and now you're pregnant?
It's not parenting. Parenting is you're a dentist and your kids are addicted to sugar and have cavities. Parenting is you're an advocate for safe teen pregnancies or sexual patience or abstinence, and your teen daughter gets pregnant, repeating the generational cycle, right? So here's the question, okay? This question has helped me so much as a parent, because I've had to experience this myself, like this genre, right, of this value system genre. Does the teen girl's pregnancy reveal that she has a different value system than the one her mother raised her in?
Oh, that's a deep question.
Does her pregnancy reveal that her value system is all out of whack and very different than the one her parents raised her in?
I'm going to answer no.
Tell me.
I bet her value system is the same. Because the reality is sometimes when you're in a relationship, you can get swayed by your partner so easily. They can fool you and then hit it and quit it, right? It's just like, it's terrible. And boys specifically are terrible. I just had a conversation with my son about what it means to be a man because he told me some joke about what it means to be a man. And
you want to tell us the joke?
Where did you learn that?
Do you want to tell us the joke? Do you remember it?
Well, I'm trying to remember it.
Sidebar.
Dad, say man after every sentence. No, I can't even say it. But it was something like, it says, say I'm a man after everything I say. I just beat you in basketball. I'm a man.
I'm a man.
Right?
I'll do it.
Yeah, I just beat you in a race.
I'm a man.
I'm a man. And then the last one was, you just slept with your girlfriend and she says, I'm a man, right? It was some kind of like this sexual joke where it was like, and I was like,
I'm a man.
where did you hear that?
It was like
So it was like
perverted sexual joke about
correct
having sex with somebody who might be a transgender, and your 10-year-old son doesn't even understand all this stuff.
No, of course not. And it was just like, I mean, shoot, I remember jokes but I was like, okay, that, like, where'd you learn that? Obviously, it's somewhere on Friends or social media, not social media, but like something he's watched or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, it doesn't matter where he learned it. What matters now is that I tell him, like, dude, I'm so glad you told me a joke. Like, that's not a funny one. Like, I don't want him to think like the joke's terrible. But I'm like, do you really want to know what it means to be a man? Right? Let's talk about that for a second. Do you think this is what it means to be a man when you sleep with your girlfriend? And he's like, I don't know. Right? He's 10. He doesn't know. But I'm like, okay, let me tell you what I think it means to be a man. And then and I asked my wife, what he told his mom, and she looked at me like, what? WTF, and I'm like, do you want to tell him what you think it means to be a man? Anyway, so what I'm trying to say, this is a long story.
No, you're telling it very well. We all know what you're going to say. Please continue.
I want to make sure that he is not a hit it and quit it person when he gets older, that he respects people. And the hard part about guys is like, you get so sexually active at an age where you're just like exploding and you don't understand what's happening. And then you go back to our conversation about masturbation. And, back in the day, people would get married so young. I mean, women are having periods at 10, 11, 12 because that's when your body historically is like, okay, time to get pregnant. And you're like, no, that's like evolution. You can now, you're bleeding. You're now able to get pregnant. You're like, are you kidding me? Yeah. And so we're in a society that waits a little longer and it makes it very difficult, right? I remember you and I in high school would have conversations about it, right? I was dating my now wife then, and you would ask me questions about what we were, comfortable with and not comfortable with, and we would go through these conversations, and it's a very hard time for kids, and that's why it goes back to values and respect. I think this girl had the same value as her mom, but she got caught in a situation that she is like, whoops. But she still has the same values. That's my guess.
I agree. Yeah, this is why it's kind of good news. Your kid's behavior doesn't actually define their value system. So this, going back to like a pretty intense story of an 11-year-old touching themselves with their, same sex.
Right.
That doesn't mean that this child is homosexual. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. This, just because this 16-year-old got pregnant doesn't mean she's insert a bad word or that she's off the rocker. All it means is that in the heat of the moment, they made a choice that, would be a dangerous choice or a premature choice or too young or an immoral choice, whatever word you want to put on it. But this is where I want to kind of leave you, my fellow parents. What's the foundation we work on here? The first one is to really be their person. And the second one is to differentiate in your mind what are your roles and what are your values. And when you think about values, you want to help them understand these are our values. But there's other people who have different values, and you've got to discover what your values are. This is what I'm trying to teach you. This is how I'm trying to lead you. This is how I'm trying to lead the family. So point 3 is teach values often with love and not shame.
Yes, that's really good.
Have your family meetings. Set the bar. Say no. Don't be afraid to tell your kid, like this mother, I asked her, what are your value systems on this? Like I asked her, do you have beliefs around this, spiritual beliefs? And she said, I don't have any spiritual beliefs, but I find this to be really inappropriate. And I told my son, this is inappropriate.
Okay.
And she was very clear. She does not want her 11-year-old child doing that with another child.
Well, especially at that age, right? It's like, listen.
Yeah, it's too young.
A little young.
It's way too young.
Way too young.
This is one of the most important parts of this podcast, though, because you've got to have a value system. You've got to stand for something Otherwise, you won't stand for anything. You've
Right.
got to determine what is healthy. And so for me, this is just how I've raised my family. I've raised my family with a lot of morals, a lot of terms like patience, sexual patience. I've raised my family with Christian morals and values. So what the traditional Christian teachings are is how I've chosen to live my life. And I've said to my kids, this is how I want you to live your life. I want you to follow the Bible, follow Jesus. I want you to do what Jesus tells you to do in the New Testament. But this is a decision you're going to have to decide for yourself. Mom and I can't make this decision for you. But see, what we're doing here, whether your spirituality is Christianity or your own moral system, my encouragement for you is to have one, to develop something, and to teach it well with love and not shame. But speak up and teach it, because we have a generation of parents here that have no values, no boundaries, and they're telling their 9-year-olds, their 11-year-olds, well, do what you got to do.
Right.
You got to explore. Yeah, go ahead. It's not. It's wrong for me to say no or to speak up about this.
Yeah. Game, amen. Good. A lot of people have like vision boards, and they'll have little things on the fridge with positivity. You could probably figure out what your value system is and write it down. Have it somewhere framed in the house so people can see it. At least you know what it is. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're one to like not know what it is. I think it's important for all of us to kind of reflect and see what that is, whether it is religious background or just like right and wrong. Be kind, right? PBS, go to PBS, see what their value. You can kind of see what the good values are in the world.
So here's a couple examples, because you really want to talk about masturbation. So here's a couple things about masturbation that just to circle back to that topic. So it's very healthy and normal to talk to your kids about masturbation. This is normal thing. You might enjoy touching yourself, and if you do, well then you're not weird. It can be something that some people like doing. And if you do it, well, then you can tell me you're doing it and we can talk about it. You don't need to be ashamed of telling me. Another topic to think about. Tell your kids that some people do masturbation as a way of a coping mechanism or stress.
Oh, that's smart.
And that could be a problem.
It could be a problem.
So if you find yourself touching yourself a lot, well, then come talk to me about it, because that could be a problem.
Oh, it's a coping mechanism. I didn't even think about that. Okay.
Number 3, tell your kids about, hey, if you do find yourself touching yourself, beware that, that fantasies in our mind can be very dangerous. So if you're fantasizing about something or someone while you're touching yourself, just talk to me about it. Be careful that you don't want to fantasize about like a celebrity or somebody at your school. That may not be good for you.
That might be a little weird.
Yeah, this is all a little bit weird, dude. Yeah, it's all.
Well, the first one's like, okay, you can handle that. Getting into the psyche be tough.
Next point on masturbation is, telling them, hey, some people, they look at pornography, and I don't want you looking at pornography. When you get older, if you choose to look at pornography, that'll be your choice. But I do not want you looking at pornography in this house. It's not good for you. It's not good for anybody's brain. But be careful, because some people, they look at pornography and then they masturbate to it. And that is not good. So if you feel like you need to masturbate or you want to, well then I really encourage you to not do it to pornography.
Good tip.
Is this a good tip?
Yes.
And then, lastly would be to talk to them about, hey, something I've already mentioned, but the experts just call it compulsive, right? Compulsive, all-consuming emotional escape. If you find yourself kind of doing it a lot or compulsively, then you might be starting to have a problem. So come and please talk to me about it, and I can help you through it. You're not weird. Mom, Dad, okay. Right. Okay, can we be done now? Yes, we can be done. We can be done, but I love you, and I want you to talk to me about these things, and not like YouTube or your friends. Like I want to be the one to help you understand this, because I love you, and you can come to talk to me. So do you have any questions about any of these things? No, Dad, no. Okay, well, it's okay with you. I'm going to check in with you a little bit, throughout the years so we can talk about these things. okay, do we have to?
The fine line is,
Yes.
you don't want to be
Yeah.
the awkward parent too. You want to keep it cool. Because you can
wanna
easily
keep it
turn into
cool.
the awkward dad or the awkward mom.
And then they may not feel as comfortable talking to you
Correct.
about that.
Correct.
I mean, we know what we don't want. We don't want our kids locked in their bedrooms, staring at a screen, masturbating, looking at pornography, fantasizing,
Sure.
going on OnlyFans.
Dude, some of these video games these days are so into all of that too.
It's just a detachment. So there's another example of a detachment from the family experience, from a true human loving experience of family-based stuff. So man, we did the best we could, Jordan.
You did great, man. It was
did
awkward,
great.
but we
You
got
did
into
great.
it, and I'm not going to ask anybody to share their stories with us because we know how awkward that can be. So please don't. But good luck to all the parents out there who have to go through it. I know you can do it. And Sean, thanks for asking or answering some of these questions. I have a lot
thank
more
you.
when it comes to the Ask Sean category.
We will.
But,
look for more of those episodes. We'll do our best.
Yeah.
Jordan and I will share
wrap this one
stories and vulnerable stories and real stories, and we're not alone. So everyone,
Thank you. I'm going to
keep
say I'm
loving.
thankful for you for chatting about this topic. Appreciate it.
I'm thankful that there's a generation of adults now that want to be better than our parents, to talk to our kids about these things and to give them wisdom, because the people on these screens, they're not giving our children wisdom on these sensitive topics, and
No,
they need
they're not.
parents more than ever. So I'm thankful for all the loving, connected parents out there.